Hello everyone. My name is Dustin, and I am a sophomore at Redlands High School. Today I came to the board to talk about one specific issue. Anyone who has been in any school in the last 5 years has known that the vaping and weed pen epidemic has destroyed schools. Many would-be achievers who are incredibly smart are instead skipping in our school bathrooms and doing illegal substances. Those who wouldn't have been able to smoke at home now find solace in the fact that they can go to school, skip class, and smoke. And it doesn't stop at smoking. When I myself was a 7th grader at Cope Middle School, I was threatened with a butcher knife inside an RUSD classroom. Yet despite this, security failed to investigate or punish this person, and they were only suspended for 1 day. When I was in 8th grade, there was a gun threat in my school. And despite school security being aware of it, we did minimal lockdown procedures, and it took security over an hour to locate the weapon. Once security did find the weapon, the minimal lockdown procedures did not change, and parents weren't notified until later that same night. And no urgency was observed by the school. And I was not alone in this struggle. This has proved that RUSD has systematically failed to ensure the security of their students. Redlands High School, a school of over 2,000 kids, has only 9 security guards, and on any given school day, only 4 or 5 might show up. With this being said, we need a serious plan before someone gets seriously hurt. Therefore, I myself, on behalf of all Redlands students, request that the board may increase security funding, hire more security, and launch better training programs and implement it with transparency. Thank you for your time. I yield.
Thank you, Dustin.
So the first speaker for general comment is named Dustin. I don't have his last name. He's a sophomore in the Redlands Unified School District, and he was talking about the epidemic of vape pen smoking. And it's not illegal unless you're underage, which is like 18. I think it might even now be 21. But anyway, he calls it an epidemic, and he says it's destroying students. And, well, you don't need to do drugs. You don't need to smoke or do drugs or drink alcohol to be an underachiever. I mean, look at me. Almost 40 years old, and I haven't made anything out of my life, and I've never done drugs. I don't smoke. I rarely drink. So underachieving, even if you don't do drugs, smoke, drink alcohol, is a serious problem. And there are people who do drugs, who smoke, who drink, who do hard drugs, and they're overachievers, but they still do all those bad things. So people are just complicated. Some people do drugs and are successful. Some people don't do anything like that, and they're unsuccessful. He also talks about how he was a victim of violence, at least threatened by violence, and how the school did nothing about it, how security failed and stuff like that. And that is a serious issue right there, and the school definitely does need to address that. The school board.
Okay. First, I'd like to point out something that the American College of Pediatrics that Candy quoted. It's a right-wing organization with only 700 members. It's different from American Pediatric Association, okay? They promote conversion therapy for LGBTQ people. Really dangerous group. Okay, so this school board is completely out of touch. Many teens are still struggling with emotional distress since the COVID outbreak. Many students can barely complete their schoolwork or even attend regularly. You ignore the reality that students are vaping in the bathroom, just like said, eating brownies laced with THC, vandalizing facilities, or fighting. At the same time, bathrooms are constantly closed, forcing students to wander campus in search for a working toilet. Yet your focus remains on books, flags, and trans girls, as if those are the real threats to our schools. I thought Michelle understood the reality, but time and again you demonstrate incompetence by siding with harmful board members instead of addressing the issues that truly affect students. You have done nothing but damage to our district this year.
Thank you, Erica.
The next speaker in this segment of public comment is Erica Grossman. She's spoken many times before in this meeting, and she brings up two different groups, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Pediatric Association. She claims that the American Academy of Pediatrics is a right-wing organization, and it only has about like 700 members. And she says that because they promote conversion therapy for LGBTQ people, they're a dangerous group. Well, her supported group, the American Pediatric Association, promotes nonsense like transgenderism. They promote sterilizing and mutilating kids just because they think that they're in the wrong gendered body or whatever. So her supported organization is the dangerous one. She also brings up that a bunch of students are still in emotional distress from the COVID pandemic. And why do you think that is, Erica? You and the other members of Together for Redlands keep talking about how we should trust the experts, listen to the experts, respect the experts' opinions, and implement their guidance. And these kids are having problems because during the COVID pandemic, we trusted the experts. So yeah, you keep blathering about how we should trust the experts, respect the experts. Look at where that got us, huh?
Welcome, Catherine.
Good evening. So first, I just want to say thank you for transitioning to the new platform, Diligent. Personally, I have appreciated how much easier it was to know what items I had to actually open instead of just clicking download on every single thing. I watched the November board meeting and was appalled by some of the community members' inability to read the agenda, so I was planning to actually advocate for a new platform because I foolishly thought the problem was the platform. Second, as Melissa mentioned, this CSBA Annual Education Conference and Trade Show was this last week. Thank you for confirming that you all attended. On Thursday, there was a panel about supporting effective library policies in school, and it featured 2 superintendents, a board member, and a teacher librarian. I know that panel had to be paused because the audience heckled the panelists. An audience full of superintendents and board members heckled their peers who were on a panel. And I am actually asking that if any of you were in that audience and if any of you participated in the heckling, that you actually admit that to all of us, because that violates your board governance document where you talk about professionalism on page 10. Quote, "I will model the civility and professionalism I expect from all RUSD staff and students in person and online." Shame on you if you were in that audience and you heckled those panelists. I actually love listening to your comments before you vote. I said tonight that it was only a matter of when, not if, board members don't follow the handbook. And I honestly was thinking we could get through the meeting, you'd all follow the handbook, it's brand new, you'd be like kids on the first day of school, you all behave in the classroom. Oh my God, you did not. Board member Ayala Quintero, thank you for following the handbook and asking clarifying questions to understand. But board member Olson, you failed to do that. President Rendler, you also failed to control the flow of conversation. You guys have already demonstrated that your board governance handbook doesn't have any backbone. Dr. Hill said that we need to cut $17 million. So I have to ask a question. There was a statement made that we will replace the library books. Dr. Hill, does that cut include increasing library budgets so that they can buy replacement books for the books that this board decides to remove? I don't think it does. And board member Olson, you said if something belongs in college, it does not belong in our high schools. Does that apply to the early college classes our high school students are enrolled in?
Okay, so the next speaker is Catherine Appleby, and she brings up some conference, the CSVA and the only thing that I can find is the College Sports Video Association, but she brings up some conference for a group called the CSVA, and how they had a library book review panel or something, and how the panel was heckled by the audience, who were all members of school administration of some sort or whatever. And so she chastised the school board and demanded that they admit if they were there and if they heckled the panel or whatever. I want to see that video. I want to see that video. I want to know what they were heckled about, what was going on. She also chastised the school board for not following board book protocol. She claimed Michelle Rendler didn't keep the flow of the conversation going. She chastised board member Candy Olson for not following the rules. She praised Ayala Quintero. Ayala Quintero and Vice President Patty Holohan are actually members of Together for Redlands, and so they're supporters of this group. Anyway, that's that.
Yeah, Dale Broom,
Welcome,
Area
Dale.
1. I wanted to bring, unfortunately, I hate to bring this up, but it's very important. In this whole debate that we've had over the school library books, the whole issue was what is pornography? Well, I've come to recognize now that there is a book that has been placed in one of our Redlands Unified School libraries that is more than just written pornographic material. It actually has images. Okay? And that is in this book called It's Perfectly Normal. This book was placed in a middle school library here in our district. It is filled with 66 nude, cartoonish images of children, men, and women, many of which are in full frontal nudity. It contains 6 sexually graphic images of couples having heterosexual and homosexual intercourse, 4 of which are completely uncovered. The author discusses sexual intercourse in detail, but there's no discussion about the importance of monogamy or marital commitment in the context of sexual relations. There's no discussion of fornication, adultery, or prostitution, and the spiritual and psychological and physical harms that can result. It is written by a former board member of Planned Parenthood, and it represents a very biased viewpoint of sexuality, gender, and abortion, and has a lot of false and misleading material within that subject. This book is clearly written to be a comprehensive sexual education curriculum. By placing this book in a school library, this really circumvents our board-approved sex ed curriculum, and it undermines the limits on that sexually graphic material that's presented to students. So fortunately, only one copy of this book was placed in the library, and it has now been lost. We're not sure if it's hidden under some kid's mattress or if it's a parent wisely disposed of it. How in the world did a school librarian allow this pornographic material in the school library? Who's responsible? Again, this was brought up in the discussion by the board members, is that there's no record. There's no record of who put this in the library. In any event, another important thing I want to point out about this book, it has the American Librarian Association endorsement. It actually has as a highly recommended book for kids. The age that this is put in is for age 10 and above. And to be honest with you, this has, like I said, over 66 nude images of kids and adults in almost full frontal nudity. And then, as I said earlier, it has images of couples having sex fully uncovered. This was placed in one of our middle school libraries. Totally inappropriate. This needs to be investigated. We need to find out how this came about, who allowed these books in the school library, and our librarians need to be very vigilant and don't pay attention to the American Librarian Association's recommendations on this type of books.
So the next speaker is Dale Broom, and he brings up a book called It's Perfectly Normal, which is doesn't just have written depictions of sexual activity. It also has images, and it's done in a cartoonish style, but it depicts men, women, and children nude and engaging in sexual activity, oral sex, anal sex, etc. And he says that there's like close to 70 illustrations in there, and he says that it was placed in a middle school library. One copy was placed in a middle school library. He doesn't say which school. He says that the copy that was placed in a middle school is missing. We don't know what happened to it. He's happy that it's missing. Yeah, it could be in some kid's room somewhere, or a parent may have found it and thrown it out. He's happy about that. But he also says that the book was recommended by the American Library Association, and he says that that institution should be ignored. Their recommendation should be ignored when it comes to books like this. I agree with him.
Good evening, Michael Paisner.
Welcome back, Michael.
This may seem like a side trail, but let me explain. I have 2 degrees in engineering. I've spent more than a decade in aerospace and had the privilege of contributing to designs that have taken people to space and returned them safely. You would feel really foolish trying to substitute your judgment for my use of the rocket equation. You wouldn't dare substitute your judgment for the work I've done, based on me having a master's degree and more than a decade of experience. This evening, you did just that to our librarians. Our librarians who have a master's degree and decade or more of experience, you substituted your judgment for theirs. You wouldn't dare have done that to me in aerospace, but you did it to the librarians. And you should be ashamed of yourself. And if you participated in that, if you voted for that, it just demonstrates your arrogance, and it demonstrates that you don't understand what your job is. Your job is not to teach in the classroom. Your job is not to curate what's in the library. Your job is oversight. Your job is management, to make sure that those processes exist and are working well. But you overstepped your bounds tonight, and it's clear you plan to continue overstepping your bounds. And it is offensive, and you should be ashamed. And with the time I have left, let me speak directly to you, Ms. Rendler. I asked you previously if you would meet with me. I'm a member of Together for Redlands. We have thousands of followers. I meet with people on a weekly basis. And I asked you if you would meet with us and let us share our perspective and discuss it in greater detail. And you shook your head yes, and you said you would meet with me, but then you never did. I've emailed you, you do not reply. To call it disrespectful, I'll just use the word disrespectful. How would you think of a child that did that to you? Who's told you yes to your face and nodded, but then didn't follow through with the action that they promised? That is how you've been treating me, and that is how you're treating thousands of people because you don't take the time to listen to their perspective. It's wrong.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Next speaker was Michael Paisner, and boy, does he really go off on a tangent. He claims that his expertise, as he says he has 10 years of experience and expertise in being some sort of aerospace engineer. He says that he's contributed to designs that actually sent people up into space. And he says that none of the board members would dare question his judgment regarding anything related to that, aeronautics and whatever. And as if that is comparable to deciding what should and should not go into a public school library. As if that isn't as comparable to that, Michael. That is a really dumbass comparison. And we don't elect these experts that you people are so fond of saying that we should respect. They are only there to advise on policy, not to make it. We elect the board members, not them. If they want to make policy, then run for the board.
Valerie Tabor. Valerie Tabor.
Hello, I'm Ellen Gruenbaum, and as I said before, I'm a grandmother, And on December 5th, I had the wonderful opportunity, which I gather a lot of you don't have enough time to go to all the events you'd like to. So I just wanted to share one that I had the privilege of enjoying. Our schools have been doing a lot with music. I knew about instrumental music, but I also really enjoyed knowing about elementary singing. This is something I remember when I moved to California in the 4th grade. It was new to me. We sang in different languages. We sang in the classroom. Our teachers led us in singing. And I can still perform for you, which I won't, some of the songs that I learned in 4th grade and 6th grade. They were things that carried ideas and were wonderful. So I just love to see the encouragement of more music in our schools, and especially when we don't always have instrumental teachers or instruments, the use of the voice and the use of ideas and that come with singing is really exciting. My grandson was singing songs he was practicing for this concert in the car the other day, and I said, "What's that?" And he was singing about an axolotl, and then he was singing about Edgar Allan Poe. It was a dark and stormy night, and Edgar Allan Poe started to write. And so he's learning a little bit about literature, he's learning about emotion, and they were singing in harmony. This was 4 different schools, 4th and 5th graders got together for the concert that I was at, wearing matching t-shirts about "I'm part of the choir." I feel like this does so much for the children to have a sense of participation and encouragement, even if they're not on a sports team, even if they're not an instrumental musician, to be part of something bigger than themselves and to encourage that kind of community spirit. So I just wanted to express my delight that these things are going on in our schools and to encourage you as a board. I know it's a tough role, but to keep working on the good things for our children that we can provide with our wonderful teachers and staff and the administrators who guide them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Next speaker is a woman named Ellen Gruenbaum. She's spoken before. She is, I believe, a member of the group Together for Redlands, and she does something rare and her public comment. Most of the other members they're just so condescending. They are so obnoxious. Listening to them talk really pisses me off. But she is not condescending in this statement, and she actually compliments the school board members, and a couple of times other members of the group Together for Redlands have given out compliments to the school board members, but then immediately went into like condescension and attack mode, or it was like a backhanded compliment, and I didn't see that in this comment. So props to you, Ellen. Unlike your comrades in arms, you weren't a condescending dipshit, at least in that public comment.
Come back, Aaron.
Hello, I'm Aaron Fernando. This will be more off the cuff. I just have bullet points. So the first point I wanted to make was about the idea that these books were appropriate for college students but not high school students, right? I mean, that makes sense. They're different levels. But are you aware of AP classes? Those are literally equivalent to college classes for the high schoolers. They've decided they get parent signatures and stuff to get into the class. And it's just really weird to me that you would say, okay, this is fine for college students, but not our kids who are supposed to be, as learning at a college level already. And so I just thought that was odd. Okay, the next point was about pornography. I'd really rather not stand here and talk about porn, but that's what we've got to do, I guess. So first off, not a single person in this room will disagree that pornography is harmful to children. In fact, it is illegal to provide pornography to children. I think we all could probably guess that even if you don't know the laws. So with that in mind, like I said, this is off the cuff. What makes you think that these books are pornography? If they were, wouldn't they be illegal, especially the one our friend just showed us up here? It's been published. It's gone through multiple layers of approval. If it were child pornography, it would be illegal. The the author, the publisher would all be sent to jail, and you wouldn't even need to hold a meeting to remove it from the library because it would be found illegal and you would have to take it out. You wouldn't need to discuss anything. So I think it's important to keep in mind that the difference between pornography and explicit material. And also another point which is brought up a lot, yes, obviously literature, the written word, can be considered pornographic. I just don't believe that either of these books rose to that level. And not to be crass, but have any of you actually read porn? Because it's nothing like the stuff in those books. It's much more explicit. You should go look for it if you want. Maybe that way you could, know what you're talking about. Speaking of which, I would like to mention the scene that Candy brought up, to quote the pussy popping like popcorn scene. I think Jeanette at least probably understood the point of that scene, considering you're a social worker. The point was that these victims of abuse often feel shame because of the way their body reacted to their abuse that was out of their control. That wasn't meant to show, oh, she likes it, so it's good. No, it was a deep shame for her, which you'd see she talked to the counselor in the story about. And once again, I'm sure you know this already, Jeanette, so I would appreciate if you'd call out your colleague Candy when she tries to spread illiterate nonsense like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
The next speaker is Aaron Fernando. He has spoken multiple times during this meeting, and he's one of the most obnoxious, condescending members of this group. There's a bunch of them can be pretty condescending and obnoxious. He's one of the most condescending and obnoxious. And let's see, how can I talk about what he just said? He references Dale Broom's comment. He references Dale Broom's comment about it's perfectly normal and claims that the graphic images in that book are not pornographic. He claims that because it was approved by the American Library Association that it isn't pornographic, and that since it's illegal to distribute pornography and give it to minors, that anybody who does so will be arrested. And people do that all the time, and they may get caught eventually, but that really doesn't stop the harm from them doing it before they get caught. People distribute pornography to minors all the time. People distribute pornography depicting minors all the time. He claims that because it was approved by the American Library Association, that it's perfectly all right, even though it was put into a middle school library, not even a high school library, but a middle school library. So that means 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. One comment he does get right is that he references an excerpt from, I don't know if it's Push or The Bluest Eye, but he references a part where the main character's pussy is described as popping, and he talks about how for a lot of victims of sexual abuse, it feels like their body portrays them because their body reacts in ways that they find to be shameful. Like, it feels physically pleasurable to them, but they know that it's wrong and they feel great shame from it. So he is right in that aspect of his public comment. I will give him that. But yeah, he's just so very obnoxious and condescending.
Unfortunately, I'm not surprised by the results, and I think the three of you should be ashamed of yourselves. The idea that you think you know better than librarians, that you think you know better than... How many committees has it been of educated experts and community members who have all said that they think that these books belong? And you have the arrogance to believe that you know better than them. And in fact, Ms. Olson, in your statements today, you made it very clear that this is not about parental rights and that you actually don't give flying you-know-what about parental rights. Because if you did, you would say, hey, the restrictions that force parents to opt into these books actually creates the perfect situation for parental rights. But no, you've made it very clear that this is about your morality, your personal, subjective morality. All three of you have, actually. And so I hope that you will see lawsuits from this, because making a decision about a book because of your moral feelings about it, without taking into consideration anything else, because clearly you didn't, because you disagreed with all of the other findings. And you have, again, the arrogance to believe that your uneducated opinions matter more than experts. It's disgusting. I'm so tired of saying the word disgusting, I'm going to have to find another better word. I wanted to use my last minute to talk about the conduct of the board during these meetings. I think that, no, I understand that as the board, there are things that you cannot interrupt. There are things that you have to let slide because it's freedom of speech. However, I want to point out that when you decide not to interrupt or not to stop or not to hold people accountable, you force the audience to do that, because so much of the freedom of speech and fighting words, doctrine, and all of that is based on the public reaction and how much it interrupts the meeting. And so by making the choices you make it impossible for the audience to not become riled up, to interrupt, to yell, and to fight one another, because that is the only way that you have justification to do those things. And I don't know what the solution is for that, but that is to say that this is all because of you, for better or for worse. So take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, so Valerie Tabor is the next speaker. She's spoken before, and once again, she makes the tired, predictable argument about how the school board is wrong for not listening to the experts, not implementing the recommended guidance from the book review committee. And as I've said before, these committees are only supposed to give advice, not to implement policy. If these so-called experts want to implement policy, then run for the school board and get elected, and then they can make policy. But until then, just be happy giving advice. And if your advice is disregarded, so sad, too bad. We didn't elect you. We elected the school board members. They can listen to you, or they can choose not to listen to you. You are not a board member. You cannot make policy. Quit whining and bitching about it. And then after that, she complains about how because the school board lets people like me and members of the group Awaken Redlands talk without interrupting them, that it makes it impossible for people like her and the members of Together for Redlands to sit silently without getting riled up and heckling speakers like me. So she blames the school board for that.
7 plus 2 equals blank plus 6. 7 plus 2 equals blank plus 6. 20% of the students at UCSD in their remedial math program couldn't get that math problem right. There's remedial education at Harvard University now. And this is after 12 years in K through 12 schools. In California, you're spending $24,000 per year. Nationwide, since 1969-70, real per student spending has increased by more than 240%. Yet, On the National Assessment of Educational Progress for 8th graders, reading 30% proficient. Math, 28%. Science, 33%. Even here in Redlands on the state standards, you got 37% proficient in math, 50% proficient in English. Like, what the heck is going on here? Since 2000 to 2022, nationwide, 5% increase in students, 10% increase in teachers, 39% increase in principals and assistant principals, and 95% increase in administrative staff. Yet we see the results I just described. Compare and contrast that, it still sticks with me, is we had at our Rotary Club back in the 1990s, we had a speaker who had been a Peace Corps volunteer in Africa. She taught at a one-room school on the south edge of the Sahara Desert. No running water, no electricity. Poverty at a level that I think most Americans could not fathom, where poor people have obesity problems and have cell phones here in America. Yet, by 12th grade, every one of those students was doing calculus. So, what should we draw from all this? Is that going along business as usual, we'll have a new budget, we'll have a new program, blah, 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 ain't going to cut it. You really need, the students need it, and the country needs it, dramatically different reform and approach to education. And I know the three of you have shown courage in dealing with these books and facing the leftist onslaught. I hope you will show similar courage in changing how you do things.
Thank you, Greg.
So the next speaker is Greg Britton, and he talks about how university students, a bunch of them, are not proficient in basic math and basic English. And he talks about how the government's problem is just to throw money at education, and it doesn't seem it hasn't achieved the results that we want. And he talks about how some volunteer or something, they went to Africa to work with teachers over there, and they were teaching in a one building classroom, and they didn't have anyone running water, didn't have any electricity. Poverty was terrible, and yet all those students were somehow doing calculus in high school. They were outperforming Americans, and he talks about how as poor as they were and as deficient in resources that they were outperforming American students. That's incredible, and it's shameful.
In a previous meeting, Steve Caperton, the president of the Redlands Teacher Association, brought to your attention that we have seen an increase in student violence across campuses in the Redland Unified School District. In the last meeting, I mentioned that my son was a repeated victim of said violence in his classroom. We just heard comments from a young gentleman who basically said that he has experienced similar things. I mentioned that Together for Redlands would be speaking with people in the district to determine a course of action, and that we have done. I'm providing the board a list of the actions that we feel it is important that the school district take to ensure student safety. I wish to read them to you now. What we want is more paraprofessionals. And in order to get them, we want an increase in salaries from $20 to $30 an hour to attract 100 additional paraprofessionals to the district. We want better in-district training for paraprofessionals on de-escalation techniques. We want an increase in hours from 30 to 35 hours per week to qualify for health insurance so that we can retain them in the district. We want mental health professionals. We want 4 additional social workers within the district to work with students struggling with mental health issues. We want a restoration of counselor positions that were funded under ELOP. Special education programs. We want additional programs to provide support to students regardless of their social, behavioral, environmental, and intellectual needs. We want additional support for teachers and their continuing education needs. On the administrative side, we want additional training on state IEP and 504 requirements to ensure compliance with state law. We want to encourage teachers and staff to inform parents of Redlands coordinated support services and other resources within the district. We want administrators to provide incentives to families to encourage attendance. What we want from the school board right now is a local funding measure to provide funding for these proposals. We want you to advocate to the state to reauthorize the IDEA Act to provide funding for special education programs. We want you to advocate for enrollment-based rather than attendance-based district funding. And what we are going to talk to the community about, and I am informing you of this so that you are prepared for it, is we want them to attend school board meetings to let you know that it's time to make changes. We want them to contact the superintendent's office if their children have special needs that the district isn't meeting. And we want them to contact their state representatives to reauthorize the IDEA Act and change district funding to enrollments-based funding. And this is what protecting students looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, B.
Speaker is Bay Hamilton, and I do believe he's the last speaker. I don't think there's any more. This video's almost done. But he mentions the epidemic of violence in the school district, and he mentions how at the last meeting before this one, how he mentioned at the last meeting that his son was attacked with a chair or something, and he brings that up again. He mentions the high school student who said he was threatened with a knife, and talked about a near shooting incident. Someone brought a gun to campus, and the security guards really didn't do anything about it. And he mentions how members of his group Together for Redlands have come up with a proposal about what to do about this. Hire more security, more paraprofessionals. They want them to get like $30 an hour, the paraprofessionals. And I really don't have anything to say about this proposal except that he wants school programs to be funded based on enrollment and not attendance. And well, the problem with that is that like anybody can become enrolled, but if they don't attend, then why should we be paying for them if they're not attending? So I think attendance is best, not just enrollment.
I just wanted to share some quick thoughts. When we a couple of months ago, when the proposal was made to change the process for books that were deemed questionable in our libraries, it was quite the event here with a very full school board and a lot of very opinionated people. And I remember one speaker got up and continued to ask her. At the time, her comments were directed at Candy Olson and Jeanette Wilson, and she kept asking if you heard, because so many of the voices that were here, very shrill, very harsh, and very much against the changes that were proposed. And so I just wanted to ask kind of a similar question, is do you remember? And do you remember all of the people who voted for you to make just those kinds of changes? All of the parents who are looking for greater protections for their children. And I'm so proud of this board and the decisions that they've made here tonight. I think it's going to be a tremendous benefit to our children and a protection. And I'm proud of them, and I thank you for the work that you do. And I'm glad to see that you have, in fact, remembered all of the voices that were not present here in these meetings, but definitely voted for the kinds of decisions that were made here tonight. And so I just wanted to thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
So the last speaker was a surprise addition. The board was about ready to go into their own comments, and he just shows up and says, "I signed up to speak. Can I speak?" And I don't know his name. He doesn't say it. They don't introduce him. But I liked what he had to say. He mentions how he doesn't go into specifics because obviously the board won't let you if you do. Bay Hamilton mentioned my brother, and the board told him he can't mention. Bay Hamilton mentioned my brother by name, said that he said social media comments about killing political oligarchs, etc. And the board said that we can't mention audience members by name specifically, so Bay Hamilton had to make allusions to him and Dale Broom. But yeah, this guy mentioned members of Together for Redlands, not by name, obviously he couldn't, but he said that they were very shrill and very harsh and were very critical of the board members, particularly President Michelle Rendler and board member Candy Olson and Jeanette Wilson. And he said that a bunch of people who don't go to these meetings voted for them to make the changes that they are making. And so he commended the board for doing that, and I commend him for saying that. Thank you.